Every morning, millions of people walk into their backyards with the same simple goal: help the birds. They fill feeders with seed, scatter breadcrumbs across the lawn, and proudly watch colorful visitors gather around their homes. It feels like an act of kindness, a small gift from humans to nature. But what if that act of kindness is secretly causing suffering? What if the very thing designed to help birds survive is sometimes making their lives harder? And what if some of the most common backyard habits are contributing to disease, malnutrition, and even death? Today, we are uncovering the hidden dangers that can turn a bird-friendly backyard into a dangerous place for the creatures we are trying to protect. Because sometimes the greatest threat to wildlife is not cruelty, it is good intentions mixed with bad information. Humans have always been fascinated by birds. They fly where we cannot. They migrate across continents. They fill our mornings with songs and bring life to our neighborhoods. That connection explains why millions of people spend billions of dollars every year on bird feeders, bird seed, and backyard wildlife supplies. Watching birds creates a sense of peace. Studies have even shown that observing birds can reduce stress and improve mental well-being. So when winter arrives and food becomes scarce, many people naturally want to help. The problem is that birds evolved long before bird feeders existed. For millions of years, they survived using natural food sources: seeds, berries, insects, nectar. When humans suddenly provide massive amounts of food in one location, the effects can be far more complicated than they appear. And the first problem often begins with something sitting right inside our kitchens. Almost everyone has done it. You find leftover bread that is becoming stale. Instead of throwing it away, you toss it outside for the birds. It seems harmless. After all, birds eat it eagerly. But birds eating something does not mean it is good for them. Bread contains very little of the nutrients birds actually need. It fills their stomachs without providing enough protein, vitamins, or minerals. For adult birds, this can contribute to malnutrition. For young birds, the consequences can be far worse. One condition linked to poor nutrition is known as angel wing. As young birds grow, their flight feathers develop rapidly. Without proper nutrients, the wings can twist outward into an unnatural position. Once this happens, the damage is usually permanent. A bird with severe angel wing may never fly properly. Imagine surviving every day in a world full of predators while being unable to escape into the sky. That is the reality many affected birds face. What feels like a free meal can sometimes become a lifelong handicap. But bread is only the beginning, because even when people provide healthy food, another danger remains. Think about how birds feed in nature. Most species spread out across large areas. They search for food in fields, forests, and gardens. They are constantly moving. A bird feeder changes that behavior. Suddenly, dozens of birds gather in one tiny location. Different species, different flocks, all touching the same surfaces, all eating from the same food source. In many ways, it resembles a crowded public space during a disease outbreak. If one infected bird visits a feeder, germs can remain behind. The next bird arrives, then another, and another. Diseases that would normally spread slowly can suddenly move through entire local populations. Wildlife experts frequently monitor outbreaks linked to feeding stations. Among the diseases commonly associated with bird feeders are salmonellosis, avian pox, and trichomoniasis. Some infected birds become weak and unable to eat. Others struggle to fly. Many die from complications. The tragedy is that the feeder itself often looks perfectly normal. To the human eye, everything appears safe, but invisible pathogens may already be spreading from bird to bird. This is why regular cleaning is absolutely essential, yet many feeders go months or even years without being properly disinfected. And unfortunately, disease is not the only hidden danger waiting inside a feeder. Imagine a bag of bird seed sitting in a garage. The weather becomes humid. Moisture slowly enters the bag. Nothing looks unusual, but microscopic organisms are beginning to grow. Certain molds can develop on stored seed, especially when conditions are warm and damp. Some of these molds produce toxic compounds known as aflatoxins. These toxins are extremely dangerous to wildlife. A bird consuming contaminated seed may suffer severe liver damage. The symptoms often appear gradually: lethargy, loss of appetite, weakness, eventually organ failure.
What makes this threat especially dangerous is its invisibility. You cannot always see it. You cannot always smell it. The seed may appear completely normal. That means proper storage matters just as much as the food itself. A high-quality seed mix stored incorrectly can become hazardous. And while toxic food can harm birds directly, another danger waits just outside the feeder, a danger made entirely of glass. Part 5. The window trap. Birds understand trees. They understand branches. They understand open sky. But glass is something nature never prepared them for. When birds look at a window, they often see reflections, a reflection of trees, a reflection of clouds, a reflection of open space. To the bird, it looks like a safe path. Then comes the collision. Every year, enormous numbers of birds die after striking windows. Many impacts occur at full speed. Some birds die instantly. Others suffer internal injuries and perish later. Bird feeders can unintentionally increase this risk. A startled bird may launch away from a feeder and head directly toward a reflective window. The solution is surprisingly simple. Experts often recommend placing feeders either very close to windows or much farther away. This reduces the likelihood of high-speed impacts. Small adjustments can save countless lives. Yet even if we eliminate dangerous food, disease transmission, and window strikes, there is still a larger problem affecting birds everywhere, one that extends far beyond our backyards. Most people think birds survive primarily on seeds, but many species depend heavily on insects. This is especially true during breeding season. Young chicks require protein-rich food to grow. For countless bird species, insects are the primary source of that nutrition. Now imagine what happens when those insects disappear. Modern landscapes are filled with pesticides designed to kill bugs. Lawns, gardens, farms, parks. Many insects never survive exposure, and the few that do may carry traces of toxic chemicals. Birds eat those insects. The chemicals move through the food chain. The effects can include reduced reproduction, weakened health, and declining populations. Over time, entire ecosystems begin to change. The result is a silent crisis, not because birds are being hunted, not because they are being chased away, but because the food they evolved to depend on is vanishing. This leads to an uncomfortable question. Are bird feeders actually helping? The answer is not simple. Bird feeders can absolutely provide benefits. During harsh winters, they may help birds survive periods of food scarcity. They can also inspire people to care about wildlife. That connection often leads to conservation efforts. But feeders are not a complete solution. They cannot replace healthy ecosystems. They cannot replace forests. They cannot replace native plants. And they certainly cannot replace billions of insects. A backyard full of native vegetation often provides more long-term value than a feeder alone. Native trees produce food. Native flowers support pollinators. Native shrubs provide shelter and nesting sites. Instead of creating a temporary buffet, they create a sustainable habitat. That is the difference between feeding wildlife and supporting wildlife. Most people who feed birds genuinely care about them. They want to help. They want to make a difference. And that desire comes from a good place. But nature is more complicated than it appears. A feeder can provide food. It can also spread disease. A bag of seed can save lives. It can also be dangerous if stored improperly. The lesson is not to stop caring. The lesson is to care wisely, because protecting birds is not about doing more. It is about understanding what actually helps. And sometimes the greatest threat to wildlife is not another handful of seed. It is a healthier world in which they can thrive on their own.